pornography. We're going to be talking about it on today's show. And we're going to be talking to an expert who will make it clear for us how people get in and, more importantly, how people get out. You don't want to miss this. Coach Drew. Hey everybody, Coach Drew here, the coach of choice for Christian men who want to improve their marriages and their lives. And I'm so excited because I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. For those of you who don't know him yet, his name is Sathiya Sam. I mean, this man is everywhere. He knows what he's talking about. We are talking about pornography, the ins and outs, what to do to be free. And I mean to experience the best of yourself for the rest of your life. That's what we're talking about. Sathiya Sam, my good friend, I want you to meet all of my subscribers. Subscribers, this is Sathiya Sam. He is the man when it comes to being free of pornography.
That's it.
He's been doing some really great work, and we've had the chance to know each other over the past year and change. So we will be speaking at some events together and doing some workshops and a whole bunch of stuff in the future together. So we wanted to have a conversation today around what he's an expert in, pornography. So introduce yourself, Sathiya. Tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and why you're doing the work that you do now.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Andrew, thanks so much for having me on the program. It's great to be a part of what you're doing. I always have a little chuckle when people say I'm the expert on pornography because it just sounds wrong in so many different ways. Some guy, I was at a pastor's group recently, and I told some guys about what I was doing, and one guy was like, "Oh, that makes you the porn guy, doesn't it?" And I was like, "No, no, no, it does not. I am not even close to that." Um, but yeah, my work really is about helping guys get free of pornography. It's no secret in this day and age that porn is a real problem, and it's not for the select. It's actually becoming I don't know, mainstream. It's widespread. Most people that you talk to will have some issue or some degree or some story with it. It's everywhere,
Right.
and a lot of people don't know how to get free. And that was my story for 15 years. I struggled since I was about 11 years old, and really, really struggled, and had a lot of ups and downs amidst that struggle, and tried to get free. It wasn't from a lack of desire; it was from a lack of education, a lack of tools,
Mhm.
and I would say I spent so much time doing things that I thought would get me free that didn't, and I found a few things that actually worked wonders and started to eventually get me on a path to freedom. And so for me, I'm like 15 years is way too long, and I've just committed my life to do everything I can to help people get free a lot more quickly, with a lot less headache and agony.
I'm really curious. What is one thing that you tried that didn't work?
You know what? I did an accountability partner kind of system through one of Triple X Church's program, and nothing against Triple X Church. They're amazing, and I really support what they're doing. But my accountability partner was struggling just as bad as I was. And the way that program works, you get a list at the end of the week of any of the questionable websites they visited. And I was still not, I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. And so I thought I could handle being his accountability partner. But then I would get this list of websites and I would start clicking on them. And then I would spiral back into like my problem all over again. And it was like the blind leading the blind. We weren't doing each other any favors by being each other's accountability partners. And it wound up being quite a bit more destructive. And I got an accountability partner because that's what everybody said you should do, and I do think you should do that. But I think you have to be more specific about what qualifies a good accountability partner and those kinds of things. So that would be an example of something I did that should have been helpful because it's what everybody said you should do, but it wound up being more destructive.
Wow. And it makes a lot of sense because as I did, group work with teens and over the years, that there's a risk. There are pros and cons to that kind of peer system, uh,
Yeah.
which is like you said, it's not that it is bad, it's not that it doesn't work, but it's important to know what qualifies someone to be an accountability partner, and how do you know when somebody's ready? How do you know when you're ready to be an accountability partner? I think that's important.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the mistakes people make is they think, I'm going to find an accountability partner that I can really be open with. And um, it's actually not super hard to be open with people. Like you can get your stuff out on a blog this day. Like you could have nobody in your life and still find a way to kind of get stuff out. But an accountability partner, someone who really actually will care about you and your well being, they should be able to ask you hard questions. They should know you well enough that they can kind of see when you're telling the truth and when you're maybe hiding a little bit. You want that kind of depth so that you're actually accountable, not just on a behavioral level, but actually at an internal level, because all behavior stems from something inside. So anybody can be held accountable for a behavior. It doesn't necessarily improve what's actually causing the behavior, though. So I think you need somebody who can really be accountable with you on a deeper level. I think that's when accountability partners really become effective.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that um, is standing out for me about what you said was somebody who knows you well and is able to challenge you and things of that nature. I have some different opinions about accountability.
Yeah,
Even the phrase of holding someone accountable, I've found in my work, especially in relationships, that that idea of accountability, it works in a very effective and healthy way when somebody wants accountability,
hmm,
when somebody initiates accountability, when someone takes responsibility for their own accountability and they seek support versus someone trying to hold them accountable, right?
uh,
It's because then it becomes an interrogation as opposed to a conversation.
yeah.
And right?
That's really good, and I would even just piggyback on that. I think one of the core issues with most people I encounter who are struggling with pornography is they tend to play the blame game. It can be pretty easy to blame circumstance, or you know what I mean. Like they have good reasons, but
Hmm.
as long as you're blaming something, you're not taking personal responsibility for it. And until you take personal responsibility, you're never actually going to be able to experience full healing and full
Right.
freedom.
Right.
And I think what that dynamic that you're articulating there is the same. If the onus is on the accountability partner to do all the legwork, then that person's not really gaining anything. They're still not taking personal responsibility for their issue. And it's not quite blame, but it's still shifting the responsibility, isn't it? So I think that's amazing. I'd fully agree. I think that's essential for someone to get free. They have to be responsible. Yeah.
Right. And, it'll be interesting to see how many of these themes, in terms of the values of the genuine apology, because accountability is a big one that dovetails nicely with the process of being free of any kind of addiction, whether it is, and I use the word addiction, some people don't use that word, but we'll come back to definition of the word. But yeah, whether we're getting free of pornography or free of something else, I think taking responsibility, taking ownership of your life is essential, because at the end of the day, you are making a choice.
Hmm.
And I think until we will never feel empowered if we don't own that we are making a choice.
Yeah.
We make choices every single day, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And it is painful to acknowledge, like, my decision to watch porn is actually my choice. It's painful to acknowledge that, but it is also empowering, because if I'm responsible for that poor decision, it means I can also be responsible for a better decision next time.
Right.
And they go hand in hand. You can't just have one or the other.
I totally agree. And that moves me to think about the reality that everybody makes positive decisions as well.
Yeah.
The truth is, we make more positive and healthy decisions than we do unwise, unhealthy decisions.
Yes.
Yet our focus is so stayed on those unhealthy choices. And when we focus on that, we kind of think, okay, this I am that, I must be so, I can't help myself. And it's that dialogue that moves us deeper and deeper into this belief system and this identity that this is me, this thing is a part of me.
Yeah, yeah, and that is really the core issue of all issues is usually the identity piece. And it's funny. I mean, this is kind of talking about the other side of it, but one of the steps in my program deals primarily with forgiveness, learning to forgive properly, and especially forgiving some of the areas where you've maybe been the most wounded. Um, and we kind of work on identifying those areas where your wounding is contributing to the addiction and whatever. Um, but when people forgive, I've seen people in the past be like, that person, they said something that was judgmental towards me, so I forgive them for being judgmental. I've heard people say that before. And it's funny how, like, in forgiving someone for judging you, you can actually make a judgment against them. Like, to say I forgive them for being judgmental is actually a judgment against them for being judgmental. Like, it's kind of the irony of it.
Right.
The difference between forgiving someone for being something and for doing something. And so I drill this one home. Like, you want to make sure, even when you forgive people, that you're not saying I forgive you for being something. It's I forgive you for judging me, or I forgive you for saying what you said and making me feel judged or whatever it is. But making that distinction between behavior and identity it's crucial. And I think people get into the most problems when they start to own their behavior or their problem as their identity. I think that's when you really start to spiral downwards.
That's awesome. I love it. Again, there's that strong correlation because a lot of the work that I do with people is around identity, is around forgiveness. Like, who are you? Who do you want to be? What is your best self? And, you know, we could go down that rabbit trail, which is a wonderful trail to go down. Well, we won't have time for that today. But I want to come back to one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk about this on my channel, because a number of men have reached out to me, and I've heard you talk about, what is it, the three A's,
Yes.
right? I want you to tell everybody about the three A's, and then I will come back to what I'm hearing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, the three A's are that pornography is affordable, accessible, and anonymous. And these three things working together make pornography an epidemic. Um, the fact that it's affordable means that there's no cost. Anybody can access porn at any time of any single day, and it doesn't cost them a single thing. They don't have to pull out a wallet. They don't have to pull out anything. They can just access it. They can access it without a cost. That, of course, is the second A. It's accessible. So whether you have a device, a laptop, you can just get it anywhere you want. And of course, like, technology is only evolving. Like, it's only becoming more accessible, and we can get it in greater quantities and everything. So it's the digital age that has really ramped things up, particularly because we were talking about this before you hit record, but 20 years ago, for someone to get access to pornography, they had to find their dad's stash of magazines, or they had to go into the, like, kind of the dark little corner of the convenience store.
Right.
It wasn't accessible the way it is now, and that accessibility, I mean, the access we have to data is such a blessing in so many ways, but this is the curse that comes along with it. Is you get this destructive content at your fingertips, and it's anonymous. So that means there's literally nobody knows what you're doing, unless they go through your browser history, and even then there's ways to kind of erase all of that if you really want to follow your trail.
Right.
So the fact that it's anonymous, it means that we're not accountable in any way for our behavior or our actions. And that's what you see. I'm sure you see it all the time, Andrew, but you see a spouse who's doing this kind of behavior, and their husband or wife has no idea. They have no idea what's going on. There's an anonymity that it's so easy. It's so easy to keep it hidden. And of course, hiddenness is kind of the mother of all error in these cases. It makes everything much worse. So those three A's are what makes porn rampant, and it's what makes porn so destructive in our society today.
Right. Right. So I heard you say affordable, accessible, and anonymous. And let's start with the affordable one because, and there is absolutely no judgment here because I think pornography impacts lives and relationships across all financial levels, right?
Yeah.
So there's no judgment here, but the reality that you don't need a job to access pornography.
That's right.
You don't need to pay for it. It's virtually free. However, being free of it, there's often a cost.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's partly why I wanted to have this conversation with you, to help people to get started in a way that is free. Like,
Yeah.
let's start down this journey or continue down this journey of healing. So, what is something that doesn't cost any money or hardly any money that men, and you also mentioned women, because that is a reality,
Yep.
that might be engaging in porn and are ready and desirous of change, what is one thing that they can do?
Okay, my top tip, if you really don't have the financial resources to, go find a counselor or do a program or whatever, my top tip is to learn how to journal. And journaling is it's just an outlet. And it's the most basic definition. It's just an outlet where you can be completely raw and completely honest. And like we were talking earlier, if you have somebody who's doing all the right things, but they're really actually in their heart level, they don't really want to get free, or they're going through the motions or whatever. There's not actually that desire to change. Doesn't matter what you do. But journaling is for the person who does want to get free and is maybe not able to talk to somebody professionally or whatever. Just start journaling. And I divide all my journaling into two parts. One is expression, and the other is reflection. And so expression is where you're getting the stuff out. You're big on Andrew. I learned this from you, even like labeling emotions, identifying thoughts. So that would be part of the expression, is really being able to get out what's going on. And this is the place where you can vent if you have to. If you don't have that outlet where you can be raw, do it there, and then reflect afterwards. Listen back. Listen to the still small voice in your head. Even just, it's funny how as you get things out, you start to gain perspective. Like you can start to pinpoint, like, wow, what an irrational thought that was, or what a ridiculous thing to think. As you get them out, you start to gain perspective, and that's where the reflection part comes. And that to me comes out of a place of stillness, or a place of really being quiet and really opening up yourself to listen back. So to me, I think journaling is probably the most cost effective way to start getting free.
That's awesome. Like you said, I journal once, twice, sometimes even three times a day. Like that
Wow.
happened to me last week. It was a day where there was just an onslaught of these thoughts that because when we get stressed or when we're fatigued, we have these thought patterns. I call them flavors of thought, and mine is all or nothing. Right?
Mm,
I can get into this all or nothing thinking, and it kind of becomes hyper vigilant when I am stressed or tired.
yeah.
And so then I journal more during those times because, like you said, it gives you the opportunity to step back and reflect. And um, I did the effective journaling webinar that's on my site. I think it's a great resource. It's pretty cost effective. But one of the things that I think um, I want people to be aware of as they journal, well, two things. One, if you've experienced trauma in your life, it's important to be aware that as you write, some things are likely going to come up.
Mm,
So to be intentional about being in a safe place or having safe and supportive community. Um, and we can come back and talk about how to know who's safe. That's another topic, right? But
yeah.
those are things to be mindful of. And then there's also some of the times our language and our dialogue, our internal dialogue, can reinforce some of the unhealthy thoughts, which lead to some of the unhealthy behaviors.
Yeah.
So be mindful of things like, self-deprecating, right? I am so this, I am so that. The all or nothing, like my flavor of thought. Um, like this is never going to work. I can't do anything. Those kind of absolutes.
Mm,
We want to be aware of that as we journal, to challenge that, to step back and be like, okay, what's the word in that? Like I can't. Okay, that's the absolute word, right? Nothing is going to work. It's the nothing, right?
yes.
To find that middle ground, I think, are some of the tips that will help us move forward and deeper with our journaling.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just demonstrated, I think, a neat byproduct of journaling, and something that I observe in every single person that I've ever taught this process to is you start to build self-awareness. And so you had said, like, when I get into all or nothing mode, I become vigilant, stressed, whatever it is. Building that kind of awareness that's how you get yourself free of anything in this life. You have to be aware of what's going on within you before you can actually address the issue and find a solution. So I think that's a neat byproduct of journaling as well, as you suddenly become much more in tune with what's going on inside. And when you do, it's a lot easier to nip things in the bud. Most people, when they first start, they just kind of like, well, I just feel compelled to do this. I have this urge and I can't resist it, and I give in. But there's a lot of things that happen before that urge, and the only way you find that out is by building self-awareness. And when you do it, you can stop things earlier in the chain, and you never actually get to the point where maybe you're in that heat of a moment, and you can't resist the temptation or whatever it is. So I think that's amazing. Yeah.
I'm reminded as you talk about building that self awareness, one of the exercises or assignments that I did when I was doing my master's was a sexual autobiography.
Yeah.
And
That sounds like a terrifying assignment.
at first it was because I'm this Christian boy who came from this environment where sex is bad, right?
Yeah.
Sex is bad, so then all of a sudden you get married and it's supposed to be good, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, like
So,
the switch flips as soon as you put the ring on, kind of thing.
right? But then just going back and redefining what sex and sexuality is and
Yeah.
looking at the entrance of sensuality and sex and exposure and trauma. Like I watched a rape scene in a movie uh, when I was about 8.
Hmm.
And Sophia, that messed me up.
Yeah, no kidding.
It messed me up, and I didn't even know. Like an 8-year-old, how's an 8-year-old supposed to know what that's about, right?
Yeah, seriously.
So when I
Wow.
when I was doing my autobiography, I could do a timeline. Said this happened here, this happened here, this happened here, and then I could see like, oh, wow, wow, right? So
Yeah.
it's having that ability to step back and consider all the factors that contribute to where you are today, how you define things, and how you define yourself. So let me just summarize because you and I could talk forever. Um, but we've talked about the reality that um, there is a difference between your identity and your behavior.
Hmm.
And being able to tease the two apart, whether we're talking about ourselves or we're talking about forgiving others, it's important to look at the action apart from the person. I know there is a connection, but
Yeah.
when we buy into like this is who I am versus this is what I've done,
Yeah.
it really makes a difference.
Yeah.
You told us about the 3 A's: affordable, accessible, and anonymous. And we talked about some of the things that you can do that really don't cost a lot of money. So whether that's journaling, um, connecting with safe people, right?
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about what real healthy accountability is. Where can you take responsibility, and how can you share that journey with someone? Um, did I miss anything in terms of a summary?
No, I think that's great. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna come back and talk about a couple other things, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate your journey. I appreciate you sharing and being the helping, healing person that you are.
Oh, thanks, Andrew. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm so glad you stayed to the end, and I want to know what you got out of this because I got so much out of it. Leave me a comment below. If you have more questions for Sathiya and something that you want us to dig into, by all means, leave it in the comments. You can message me. I've included Sathiya Sam's contact information below, so feel free to reach out to him. Don't forget to share and subscribe and like and do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, continue to learn, heal, and grow.